Good morning. Welcome to the Environment and Community Services Committee for September. Do we have any apologies?
We've just got the one apology from Councillor Flaherty, who is on leave at the moment, Madam Chair.
And we just note the leave of absence of Councillor Flaherty and Abbott. Any declarations of interest?
Has been nil received, Madam Chair.
Okay. Public participation. We have two people for development application 30-2022 for the helipad.
Yes, that's correct. So Fiona Whiteman and Kim Daniel have requested to speak.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to invite Fiona Whiteman up. Speak at the lectern. Thank you. Is it on, Karen? Thank you.
Okay. Start. Good morning, Councillor Campbell, Councillor McPhee, Councillor Watts and members of the Environmental and Community Committee. We, the Merriwell community, strongly object to the development application 30-2022. And have serious concerns regarding Council's assessment of this application. The proposed helipad development to be built at 4 King George V Avenue is within the Merriwell Heritage Conservation Area. This is confirmed in the planning proposal amendment to the Upper Hunter Local Environmental Plan 2013 version 01 dated 7th of July 21. The Upper Hunter Development Control Plan 2015 Part 9 Heritage Conservation seeks to facilitate the implementation of provisions relating to heritage conservation contained in this plan. Conserve the heritage significance of heritage conservation areas. Ensure new development is compatible with the significance of heritage conservation areas and protect the significant character of heritage conservation areas and encourage responsive design appropriate to the character of this valuable land. A helipad is not conducive with these objectives, and to date, Council has not provided a statement of heritage impact or a streetscape analysis. An impact statement is required to be lodged with the New South Wales Heritage Council for a development within a heritage precinct. This includes a development alongside or adjacent to a heritage listed property. The Merriwell community awaits Council to provide this statement for review and comment. The Upper Hunter Local Environmental Plan 2013 New South Wales legislation, section 5.1 or 5.10, heritage conservation has clear objectives. Clause 1, A and B, the conservation of environmental heritage items and areas of the Upper Hunter area is a key objective. This includes associated fabric settings and views. Clause 4, the consent authority must, before granting consent, consider the effect of the proposed development on the heritage significance of the item or area considered. Council needs to demonstrate to our community how the proposed helipad will comply and address the environmental heritage requirements and provide this report to the Merriwell community. We have asked Council to conduct a risk assessment, particularly as 4 King George V Avenue is in a bushfire-prone area, according to New South Wales Rural Fire Service. To date, Council have failed to confirm that this assessment has been undertaken. The close proximity of this proposed development to a busy highway, power lines and homes is of significant concern to residents. The Upper Hunter Shires Community Participation Plan articulates the level and extent of community participation regarding the potential impact of the planning decision, the participation of key stakeholders, community engagement and public feedback of development proposals. Council is yet to provide confirmation that input has been sought from real estate agents as to whether property values will be adversely affected if this development were to be approved. Landcare, Rivercare groups and the New South Wales Rural Fire Service as part of the risk and hazard assessment process, and Indigenous groups as this is a heritage conservation area. Council considers community participation and engagement invaluable in their decision-making process. Given the community outrage at this proposed development, I'm at a loss as to why Council is recommending approval. Concerns for this development have been raised by the Merriwell community via letters of objection, and council has failed or chosen not to address community concerns. I'm disappointed that council has little regard for its ratepayers, that it has chosen not to respond to the concerns raised. The Upper Hunter Shire community vision is a quality rural lifestyle in a vibrant, caring and sustainable community. Our council's Environmental and Community Services Report, 26th of July 21, we are working to achieve the following community priorities. Rural lifestyle and country feel are valued and protected, and the Upper Hunter Shire remains quiet, safe, healthy and welcoming. According to the Upper Hunter Shire Council Community Strategic Plan 2032, this vision was developed to reflect what is most important to the people of the Upper Hunter. Council appears to be concerned that if this DA is not approved, the applicant will take council to the Land and Environment Court. Surely this is not an excuse to ignore community concerns. We deserve and are entitled to due process, procedural fairness and transparency. I just wanted to confirm too that committee members had received correspondence from Sue Higginson. If not, I've got a few copies.
Councillors, you've all got that and read that. Just if we have any questions? Councillor McPhee.
Thanks for your time today through the chair. Just a couple of things. I was quite concerned about the lack of, well, I wasn't concerned about, I was concerned that perhaps the people who put in the DA weren't fully abreast of community concerns. That's why we did amend in that council meeting and actually had an extra round of community engagement. So I'd just like you to note that we did take that on board, and we actually did give community an additional set of months to do that. We actually asked them also to have drop-ins so that you could actually go and discuss with the McFaddens about that. So I just wanted to highlight that. It's not that we're afraid of going to court. It's just that we're in a very difficult position because we can't just make decisions based on how we feel. We have, I mean, Mr. Pringle, they have a process, and on paper, as I've said several times, all the boxes have been ticked. And so we are obliged to, we actually have a conflict in what community says and what actually the process is. I probably have concerns that there's a conflict there that's above us, it's legislation. So that's always the conflict we have. And the thing is to say if all the boxes are ticked and we do vote against it, it is, and it does go to court, it costs council hundreds of thousands of dollars and we still get the same outcome. So there's all these things that we have to weigh up. I feel very conflicted about this, and I hear what you're saying, but just so it's not that council are not listening, we've actually done our best to give community an opportunity to talk more to the McFaddens, to have McFaddens perhaps realise that this is not a popular thing, but we're also bound by legislation. So it's really a very conflicted thing. I'm sick in the stomach to actually have to vote on this today, because I really feel what community is saying, but we also are aware, and the McFaddens have made very clear that they will appeal this. So just be mindful, it's not council not doing their job. We're also trying to make sure that the decision we make is the right decision in terms of the wider kind of scope of it. But thank you very much for coming today.
We do understand, as like the community does understand, that council has a difficult decision to make. However, we're concerned that perhaps all avenues have not been investigated. And if so, we haven't been provided with any evidence that they have. I mean, with legislation, yes, I do understand that. But I mean, if we read through or if we reference Sue Higginson's letter, that was quite
Can we just have a
interesting.
question and answer? Because, yeah, we're actually going back and forward here, and that's not what this time's about. Sorry. Councillor Campbell, did you have any questions?
Not at this stage. I'll address that when we
Okay.
discuss it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Our second speaker is Kim Daniel. Thanks, Kim.
Good morning, everyone. Noise pollution. Noise from the proposed helipad site is one of the biggest issues for the Merriwell residents, and yet no testing of any kind has been conducted by the council to safeguard the community. The sound report submitted was conducted by the applicant, who is not a qualified technician. Therefore, it really bears no weight in this case and should be disregarded. Even though misleading, the Acoustics Australia sound report still concluded that the sound of the site would actually be 50 decibels higher than accepted residential noise level for the closest receivers. In all EPA legislation, 50 decibels above accepted residential noise level is not acceptable. The EPA anticipates noise from a residential helipad would be above average background levels and consistent with the highest instantaneous maximum noise level provided by any short-term activity. Offensive noise is a pollutant and can lead to a multitude of significant adverse health effects. The POEO Act defines offensive noise as noise that is harmful or is likely to be harmful due to its level, nature, character, quality, or the time it is emitted to the person outside their premises, or noise that interferes unreasonably with the rest or comfort of a person outside their home. Air pollution. Helicopters have been shown to be a major source of dust and harmful pollutants, and particular air pollution. Soot emissions from burnt aircraft fuel can lead to ozone depletion, which poses a significant threat to humans from the air we breathe to the waterways, wildlife, and harming of plant life. Collecting rainwater from our rooftops or eating vegetables from our garden will be contaminated. Rotor wash causing dust and wind has the potential to cause significant damage to the people, objects, vehicles, and vegetation, including foreign objects like golf balls and barbed wire. Secondary effects due to excessive wind and vibration has the potential to damage buildings and structures. Environmental harm. The applicant submitted Professor Ross Wellington's desktop evaluation on the BioNet Atlas and found no endangered or protected species. I simply typed in on the BioNet Atlas and the results found 99 protected and endangered species in the immediate vicinity. Changes in the acoustic environment will have a negative effect on our flora and fauna. Helicopter activity within our ecosystem will have a consequence, including dislocation of flight paths, disruption to feeding patterns, nesting sites, and the pollination services from our birds. Seed production and plant communities and the capacity to regenerate may decline. Primary production and zoning. This site has been used for primary production, has not been used for primary production since the 1950s, as it's been part of the golf course. The owners are not primary producers and the site does not comply with RU1 zoning as it's too small. The owners have combined lots 25 and lot 101 into one parcel of land. It is surrounded by barbed wire and electric fences, and most of the land being residential heritage conserve area and only a small sliver being zoned RU1. There is no defining way to tell which is which. Helicopters are permissible for agricultural uses, but the land in question does not comply. I have at least 10 pages full of legislation that prevents this proposal from being approved. The owners have not disclosed what their plan is for the vacant residential land. Surely they don't need a helicopter to fly from Sydney to pitch a tent. The council had to close the Merriwa RTA branch down due to staff shortages. So I'm sure that they won't stick a staff member on a deck chair in the middle of a vacant house block to monitor flight movements. Will this be left to the residents to monitor? There is acceptance and expectation of noise associated with rescue and essential work, but there is no justification for the destruction of highly valued peace and quiet, quite simply for one's selfish pleasure, and to disrupt a whole community. The Merriwa residents deserve to be treated with respect and due diligence. Protection must be given to the community, and particularly the elderly, that deserve the right to live in a peaceful and safe environment. Surely the council, to do their job properly, would have to investigate all submissions made regarding this helipad to make a sound and unbiased decision. Thank you.
There's no site inspections today, so we'll go on to the business items. And the first business item on the agenda is ECSC 9.1 development application for the helipad. Now we have been given quite a lot of information. We have the submissions, and I will just note that John and Beverly Small have mentioned that they couldn't make it here today. So if we have read all our information that's been provided and what's tabled, would we like to open up for discussion? I have a move.
We're going to first move. Could we move it to option 2?
Sorry, I was just going to suggest, Madam Chair, it's up to the committee, but Mr. Pringle does have some commentary maybe that would help the committee wade through some of those submissions that were made and some of the verbal presentations that were given this morning, if that helps the committee.
Okay, well, I actually want to raise some things, so I might do that first. Do you want to do that before?
I think it'd be worthwhile
Okay.
hearing that before any councillor moves a particular direction.
Just,
That's all.
okay, just before I hand over to the director, I would like to note that some of the information in Ms Daniels' submission is a little bit misleading and incorrect. The assessment officer did not pre-approve the proposal within 6 days of receiving the application. The assessment report was commenced 6 days after receiving the application. Whilst the aviation assessment refers to an R22 or R22 helicopter on page 19 of the assessment, it clearly states that the helicopter landing site is suitable for daytime use as a basic landing site by Robinson R22 and R44 helicopters. A peer review of the aviation assessment confirms that the assessment is sound from regulatory and safety viewpoints. Also in that submission, contrary to the claim made, the helipad site is not within a heritage conservation area. I haven't had enough cup of tea today, sorry. And if you can note that on the map that we have been given. No evidence has been provided to support the claim that there are abundant species of protected and endangered flora and fauna, including nesting sites on the proponent's property, which will be severely impacted. Also, contrary to the claim made in the submission, the helipad site is not located within a bushfire prone area, as correctly stated by the General Manager in a radio interview, also noted on the map. The application was referred to CASA for comment. CASA verbally advised that it does not normally provide comment on small private helipads and that it is a matter for council. The legislation extracts in the submission refer to irrelevant legislation and reference to designated development area of no relevance, as the proposal is not designated development and clearly stated in the assessment report. The submission references the Environmental Protection Regulation 1998, which is Queensland legislation. And the submission contains a number of random extracts from CASA guidelines that are provided without context or an explanation of their relevance to the proposal. It is assumed that these references are intended to apply the proposal is unsafe or non-compliant with aviation regulations. Clearly, this is not the case, as the peer review undertaken by our aviation expert concluded that the aviation element of the development application has been thoroughly considered and is sound both from regulatory and a safety viewpoint. So I think we need to just remember those points when we're going through, because they were included in the submissions. Have you got anything further? Or that was all of it?
No, that was it.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, we have a mover.
I'd like to move option 2, that council refuses development application number 30/2022 for helipad at lot 25 DP 240800, number 4 King George Avenue, Marywall, for the reasons listed in attachment 2.
And do we have a seconder? Disapprove. Not, you second that? Any discussion, any questions?
I'd like to discuss this.
Yep.
There just seems to be so much community concern about this, and we've opened it up. And I know that it looks like on paper that there's nothing really wrong with it, but at the end of the day, we are here to listen to our community, and they are not happy with this. I sincerely hope that it doesn't become a financial problem for us, that it gets appealed and it just causes more issue. But I don't see the point in having a personalised helipad in Marywall. I think if you want to buy in and live a rural lifestyle and be part of the community, you also have to listen to the community. So that's what I'm doing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, I agree with the comments made. I'm also concerned that as far as the community is concerned, there's almost total opposition to this helipad going ahead there. There is no opposition to a helipad or heliport, whichever you like to call it, but not in this area. That is the issue. And I think, and I agree with the fact that we're going to go against those people and residents that are in the Merriwa area that have so clearly demonstrated, and I believe with valid reasons, that they don't want that helipad there, that we are not performing our duties correctly. I do ask too regarding the dust and also that the noise pollution. I saw, in fact, I was in the chamber when Mr. McFadden put a video up that showed us just that, and the noise the noise was not excessive. That's an absolute rubbish report, because you can't have a microphone there and then have a helicopter landing over there. Anybody that listens to a helicopter comes over, and they have come over, especially to at these heights when they're inspecting electricity lines over our farm. There's a lot more noise than what was actually transmitted, and I question the fact that the validity of that report, because and also the sound report was done by him, also his own particular company. The dust. Now, how's that going to be mitigated? I mean, let's be reasonable when we've got it dries, and certainly Merriwa gets very, very dry. And then he did suggest that he was going to put a sprinkler system around. What about the draft that is away from that particular pad over there? It shouldn't be. All that it just doesn't work that way. And look, I'm on the land. I know darn well how much dust is generated by our own machines, etc. So I think I question that, and I don't believe that the report was correct. And so I really can't support this. The other matter is, of course, I think it was brought up, who's going to monitor these things, the landings, and also just whether that it's going to take place in the middle of the day when it's the hottest part and you've got a dry area. Who's going to monitor those things? I don't believe it's up to council to have somebody sitting there and monitor them. I think that's quite apart from the thing, just shouldn't be there. So I cannot support it at all.
Just before I put it, look, I agree with both of you. I think occasionally you get certain recommendations that are put up that really tug at you, and it's really hard to decide which way to go and which way not to go. And like you said, Councillor McPhee, when the community is involved and they are so outspoken, there's got to be a reason why. And I totally agree with both of you that we need to support what the community is saying. So I'll put the new recommendation. All in favour? Against? Carried. We'll move on to development application for the dual occupancy on page 49. I don't know how to do that. Might be easier. Okay. No. It's on 51. It's on 51 if you're on your computer. No wonder I couldn't find it. Okay. So the recommendation is the council approve development application for a dual occupancy at lot 6, section 13 DP D758490, 15 Wilson Street, Gundy. Do we have a mover? Move Councillor Campbell, seconder Councillor McPhee. Any discussion? Yes, Councillor Campbell.
Perhaps the director might just explain a little bit more about it. I'm not familiar with the actual lot, but I do know that occasionally I have been to the Lingalonga area, and at Gundy it's a very perhaps Matt, if you might just explain a little more about the dwelling. Thank you. Proposed dwelling.
Yes, Madam Chair, it is within walking distance of the Lingalonga. So it's at 15 Wilson Street in Gundy. It's a dual occupancy. as outlined in the report. Look, it's a fairly straightforward proposal. It comes off a gravel road, so there is no requirement for sealing of the drive or anything like that. They can remain gravel. There was one submission received when it was placed on public exhibition, and that submission raised a number of concerns in relation to the proposal, and I'll just outline those for you if we can just find those. The concerns were in relation to overlooking of adjoining properties, impacts on local amenity and security, concerns about road safety and footpaths, dust impacts, and concerns about the on-site sewage management system and potential for odours. All of these issues have been thoroughly considered in the assessment, and we find the proposal won't have any significant adverse impacts on surrounding properties. So we're comfortable with that. Obviously, there's no water or sewage, reticulated sewage in Gundy. So we'll be relying on an on-site sewage management system, and that's been designed by a consultant to ensure that the system will work. We've assessed that as satisfactory, and there'll be on-site storage of water. An adequate supply of water will be available as well. So generally, look, the assessment we're happy with, and we're recommending approval.
Just one aside, perhaps it's within walking distance to Lingalonga. Maybe it's the retirement plans for our mayor. Please accept that as a frivolous comment. It's not.
That's all we'll actually accept it as. Okay. Do we have a move? Okay.
I'd just like to say that we'd have to now have an RV site if we wanted it for the retirement plan.
So any further comment? I've got a mover and acceptor. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to the third one, development application number 82-2022, storage shed and carport. It is for 7 Roach Street, Parkville. We're all over the Upper Hunter Shire today. Do we have a mover for that? Councillor McVeigh, second. Councillor Campbell. Any discussion?
Yeah, could Matt just enlighten us a little more on that? I do like to hear his voice.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Madam Chair, this application is being referred to the committee and council because of a non-compliance with the minimum front setback prescribed by the DCP. It's a proposal for a colorbond shed with a carport. It's 9 metres by 6 metres in dimensions. The proposed shed will replace a shed that was on this location previously, which is forward of the building line, but it is consistent with other sheds within that street, in that area, and there is an established pattern that it meets, and therefore we consider that the non-compliance is acceptable under the circumstances. So we're recommending approval.
Happy with that? Anything further? All those in favour? Against? Carried. Oh, someone's excited in the gallery. See you later. That concludes our meeting for today. Thank you for joining us.